What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. So, I had a thought for a video because I've kind of run into this in the real world. Whether it be actually using these things for myself and being extremely disappointed in them, or more so from a sound guy perspective, like working in a club and seeing bands come through and they have these types of things, this type of equipment, and having to really deal with like the issues that these types of that this type of equipment can bring. So these are going to be the 5 pieces of gear that you should avoid if you are in a like you know I don't want to say like a professional, but I mean definitely you should avoid these if you're in a professional band. But even if you're in like a mid, just if you gig like every weekend, like a mid-level gigging band, if you're gigging every weekend, if I'm being totally honest, I would even say if you're gigging at all, if you're playing out live to an audience and you're getting paid for it at all, I would avoid all of this stuff. So let's get into it. 5 pieces of gear you should avoid. The first thing is cheap wireless systems, like wireless guitar systems, wireless microphones. There has been a huge influx in like this weird off-brand wireless stuff. People are getting things off Amazon or like Temu or TikTok Shop or like whatever it is, and I keep seeing this stuff out in the wild all the time. Bands will come through with these weird little like, the transmitter and the receiver are both like these little wart things that just kind of like hang off of your guitar or like plug straight into a pedal, and these things are terrible. They sound bad. They have like no battery life, and the signal is awful. They drop out and stuff all the time. They're noisy. Like, I've just seen so many of these things out in the real world, and they're terrible. So, if you get a wireless guitar system or a microphone from somewhere like this and it costs like $100 or something, you're going to get exactly out of it what you think you're going to get out of it, which is nothing. It's going to be awful. So, definitely avoid those things. A good cable is always going to be better. $100 guitar cable is infinitely better. It is an amazing guitar cable. I have $100 guitar cable, and you can tell when you plug it in, the sound, like, it's just clean and open and bright, and like it just. So if you're just gonna spend $100 on something that gets your guitar signal from your guitar to your pedal board or your amp, spend it on a cable instead of one of these cheap little TikTok Shop Amazon wireless systems. They're trash. Just avoid them like the plague. Or just buy you something name brand, buy you a Shure or a Sennheiser or something that has a reputation and is reliable and has been tested. Like, spend a little more money and get the real thing. Number 2 is going to be cheap microphones, just in general, not just wireless, but cheap microphones, and more specifically, cheap drum mics. I run into this all the time as a sound guy, and I get it. Drum mics are expensive. I get it. Even what I would consider like a lower end set, like the Shure PG mics, they're like $500 for a set of them, and they sound really good. I've got Shure PG mics that I use for my tom mics, and they sound really good. But I keep, again, TikTok Shop, Temu, Amazon, I keep seeing these like weird off-brand, never seen them before, just crappy little plastic and like pot metal drum mics, and they sound bad. Especially like the kick mic and like the snare mic, they never sound good at all. The kick mic sounds so bad on these things. So just, and even with vocal mics and like guitar cab mics, same deal. Like a Shure SM57 is what it is, and it costs what it costs, and it's really not that expensive. So if you're gonna get you a microphone for like your guitar cabinet or a vocal mic, I mean, they're not my favorite mics in the world, but a Shure SM58 is like tried and true and tested, and you can find them used on Reverb or something like that for a really good deal. Brand new, $100. Like, just spend the money on something that is road tested and has a reputation and it's reliable. And like I said, I get it with these drum mics. Drum mics are expensive. No one wants to go out and drop multiple thousands of dollars on really high-end drum mics, but you get what you pay for. And like I said, you can go up to like the Shure PG series. They're really good. They sound good. I've been using them for years. I used to use the kick mic, and the kick mic sounded very usable, like very usable kick mic. You had to tweak the EQ a little bit. It was a little boomy, but it's way better sounding than these like knockoff, Amazon or whatever, like drum mics. Just don't do it. You're not gonna have a good time. The other thing I've noticed about them is like the mounting system that comes with these type of mics is usually pretty terrible too. Like you have a hard time getting them on the drums. You have a hard time tightening them and keeping them in place. Like there's just a lot of things about them that are not good. So, number 3, and this is going to kind of be like the controversial one. But I stand by this. Doesn't matter if it's cheap or expensive. Solderless guitar cables. Don't use them. So, I used to have one of the D'Addario, and I love D'Addario stuff. Like, I use a lot of D'Addario products. Not affiliated with them in any way. Use a bunch of their products, and I love them. But, and this isn't just an issue of their solderless cables, it's solderless cables in general. I had a whole pedal board built with these things, and they are going to die. It's not a will they die, it's they are going to. They are going to fail you. It just depends when it happens. Maybe it'll happen at a practice. Maybe it'll happen in the middle of a show. The solderless design is just not durable. It's not. It doesn't matter if you go buy the really high-end like George L's or like whatever they are, like they're not reliable. At some point, that screw... So the way that these solderless cables work, if you don't know, is you have your wire in the middle, and then there's like a ring, like a metal ring around it, and then you put the end over the rubber, and then there's the rubber part, right? So you put the end, you put the input, or whatever, the plug, you put the plug over it, and you put a screw in, and that screw makes contact with that metal sleeve, and that gives you your connection. I get it, they're convenient, it's easy. I was able to sit there and like custom length my cables and cut them. They even give you like a little cutter, it's great. Boop, boop, cut them, put the ends on, screw them in, hook up your pedal board, you're done. Like hey, I get it. If you don't have a lot of soldering experience, that might seem very appealing. But they're going to fail you. I had so many of those things over a year, so many of them failed over the course of a year. And I kept having to take the end off and turn it and reattach it. And it's just not worth it. Learn how to solder, especially like guitar cables. They're super easy to solder. There's like 2 connection points in a regular tip sleeve guitar cable. Okay? Just learn, get you a decent soldering iron. They're not that expensive. Learn how to watch some videos, make your own. If you don't like pre-made patch cables, because those can be expensive, just buy a raw cable, buy ends, cut it to length, learn how to solder your own patch cables. It will save you a world of frustration down the road. I have had the same patch cables I made for like the past 5 years, and I think I've had to resolder one of them, and it was my fault, not the cable's fault. It's because I caught it on something and pulled it, and the tip came loose. The totally user error, on my part. Like, I was trying to pull it out. I was trying to like unplug it from the board and like move it and move the pedal, and I like pulled on it and it was still connected, and I didn't realize. I thought I'd unhooked it and I hadn't, and it was still connected, and my fault. They've all been great, and I've used them on multiple boards and stuff. Like, just go with soldered cables 100% of the time. All right, Number 4, and I have some here, so it's not all, but cheap in-ear monitors. Now, these are KZs. These are great. I've been using these for like 2 years and haven't had any problems with them. The cable comes unplugged from the earpiece, so if you do break the cable, you can just buy another cable and plug them in. They sound fantastic. But there are a lot of brands out there that sell cheap cables, cheap IM headphones, and they're awful. So kind of do your research. Again, I kept seeing people out using these, and I was like, hey, what kind of in-ear monitors are those? Because I had some, and I hated them. My band had some, and we hated them. And I'll tell you what they were. They were I don't know the exact model number of them, but they were the cheap Sures, like the $100 Shure ones. Trash. They sounded awful. Our singer went through like 3 pairs of them. Our drummer blew up like 2 pairs of them. The drivers kept blowing out. The cables kept getting shorts in them. You can't unplug them and replace the cables. They were terrible. And so many people were like, dude, get the KZs. They're cheaper. They're way better. And they're right. These are awesome. So, if you're cheap doesn't necessarily mean like price-wise. Those Shures were cheaply made. Now, yes, they did have the Shure name on them, but they were like the lowest in Shures. Yeah. So, cheap IMs, do some research, watch some videos, see if you can find something out about which IMs you're looking for exactly. I really like the KZs. They're durable. They're reliable. They cost like $50, $60. So, they're road tested. I know a lot of people that use them. I know people in like big touring bands who have like $1,500 set of IMs, and their backup set of IMs are like $50 KZs. So these are really good, but I would avoid what you want to look for. You can always kind of tell with in-ear monitors is if the cable doesn't detach from the ear, that means they're made more like earbuds. Right, they're just hardwired in. There's no way to swap the cable, because that's going to be the majority of what happens is you're going to snag these on a guitar strap or something, and it's going to yank on the cable, and you're going to get a short. That's what's going to happen a lot of times, and that can happen with expensive ones. That can happen with cheap ones. That can just happen. But having the ability to just buy a new cord and not have to buy a whole new system is great. So if you see these cheap, like black, rubbery ones, and you don't have that ability, and like these are 5 drivers, so there's 5 drivers in each earbud. Single driver ones, that just have one speaker in there, they tend to just not be able to handle all the frequencies that you're getting in a live situation, like kick drum and stuff like that. A live kick drum mic'd up, to me, they didn't handle it great. It sounded real it sounded real farty. That's the only way I could really describe it. It was just like a big fart in my ear. Didn't sound great. So get good IMs. Again, you don't have to spend a ton of money. You just got to find the right ones. Get good IMs. And then last but not least, because this is probably the thing I see like the most, which blows my mind, but I see this like the most. People will have good cables, they'll have good pedals, and for some reason, they just like do not want to spend the money on a power supply for their pedal board. They will have really nice pedals and a good amp and good cables, and they'll go get like a $30 Amazon power supply for their cables. Don't buy a cheap power supply. So number 5 is cheap power supplies. Don't buy a cheap power supply for your pedal board. Just don't do it. You're putting your pedals at risk, right? What you want in a power supply is an isolated power supply where every output of that unit is its own isolated output. Because sometimes these cheaper ones, there's no difference between the power supply and just daisy chaining all of your pedals together with like a cable, like a daisy chain power cable. They literally just do all that inside of a metal box and they sell it to you as a power supply. It's not a power supply. It's just a centralized daisy chain unit. That's really all it is. And you can damage your pedals. They're noisy. They're just not reliable. Like, buy you a good isolated power supply to run your pedals on your pedal board off of. Trust me, it's going to clean up, noise and stuff like that. It's going to keep your pedals regulated with the right power. They're not going to lose any type of voltage or anything like that. Like, get a good isolated power supply. So, thank you guys for tuning into the video. That's it. 5 pieces of gear to avoid if you are even remotely thinking about going out and playing live and being in a band. I get it. It's expensive out there, and all of this stuff costs money. But if you cheap out up front on a lot of this kind of stuff, or you take the easy way with like the solderless cables, at some point you're going to have to pay the piper. I've been at a gig before and hooked my pedal board up, and I had a dead cable, and it was one of these solderless cables, and I had to pull it out and turn the head around and redo it in the, right before I started playing, 5 minutes before I'm supposed to start playing, right on stage in front of everybody. And it's like, it's just something you don't want to deal with, So, avoid those things, and you will have a much better time in a live situation. So, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments if there's any stuff you've come across, maybe things I didn't mention, like if there's anything you've seen, that people should avoid if they're going to be a gigging musician. And I will be back soon.